Welcome to Recruiter Wins, your bite-sized 15-minute podcast with your host, Zach Gallinger. This is the show where every guest answers one simple question. Tell me about your biggest recruiting win. You'll hear everything from gut-wrenching candidate conversations to game-changing business development wins. Real stories with lessons you can actually use in your next search.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Recruiter Wins. My name is Zach Gallinger, and I'm the founder of Talent Hero Media, a digital marketing agency that works exclusively with recruiters. In this podcast, we sit down with a highly successful recruiting expert to ask them a single question. Tell me about your biggest recruiting win. Our guest today is Ben Watkins, an executive recruiter at Intrinsic Search. Intrinsic Search is celebrating its 20th year in business this month. So welcome to the show, Ben, and congrats on the 20 years.
Many thanks, Zach. It's great to catch up, and thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So, as I always do, I'm going to ask you that one question now, and you can get started. Tell me about your biggest recruiting win.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. One example I have, this was a number of years ago now. I was talking to a CEO, a senior CEO, one of our events we were hosting in Europe, and he was just launching a new, really exciting SaaS startup focusing on the retail space. And we knew him from old, and he asked us if we could partner with him to help him build up his European team from scratch to help scale the market, selling directly into different countries, but having local offices in countries like the Netherlands, France, Germany, for example. So we took it on as a major project and worked together for a number of years. So it was a major win for our company, and we absolutely loved working with these guys.
Okay. Let's sort of delve into a bit to that story, and we'll start with just the first question is sort of about that event you were hosting. You know, I haven't heard a lot about recruiters. I've heard a lot of recruiters talking about hosting their own events. Can you tell me a bit about that, how that kind of works and how you get people to attend?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've been hosting our own events for pretty much on and off for 20 years now in various cities in Europe. And the audience are typically senior commercial execs running B2B SaaS firms. We invite, but it's a paid event. And we find when it's a paid event, we get a much higher attendance rate, over 90%. That's just a small fee, which is really beneficial. And it's very much around thought leadership. So the event is normally consists of having a few key speakers from the industry who give teachbacks in terms of how to scale companies or other success stories. But then we also have a huge amount of audience participation during the morning where the audience can interact and network as well. And we've got some business from it over the years, but it's something different. I find it's quite difficult to find really high quality business events, particularly in London or in our industry, unless you go to a big conference where you've got hundreds, if not thousands of people sometimes. So it's a much smaller niche event where you can get to really network with your peers and get business from it. It's been really successful.
Right. And so how many people are coming to an event like this?
We normally have up to 120 people in a room. So around 100 turn up normally, something like that. We normally have lunch as well with a sort of a VIP list, if you like, some of our closest clients.
And how do you get people to attend? I mean, like, what's the process to build out that invite list look like?
So we specifically target and select people who know us or we think we can do business with. So we invite people, but it's hard work inviting people and making sure people then attend as well. But we will actually personally select a target list of individuals who know us, who partner with us, who want to do business with us. But we also might invite and attract a number of senior job seekers who are in between jobs. Just because someone's unemployed for a number of months doesn't mean they're the wrong fit. They could just be about to start a new venture, are looking to use an executive recruiter as part of that new job when they build out their own team. So complete mixed bag, really.
Okay, so you have sometimes both sides of the market there. That's interesting. So next question for you. You mentioned actually offline that when this company came to you, they didn't have all the details of how they kind of wanted to expand the business. So my question basically, when someone comes to you with just the outlines of a hiring plan, but not any of those concrete details, where do you go next? How do you actually build out what is going to become your recruitment strategy?
So, for example, if we're looking to hire the vice president of sales in a specific country, firstly, we have a a deep conversation with the client about the actual role, what they're looking to hire, what fires that person needs to put out, or what the responsibilities will be. So we get really, really deep under the bonnet. Then we will discuss with the client, how do we actually sell your opportunity? How do we sell your company? What's the story we're going to pitch to these candidates? Because we're a headhunting firm, we're going to be pitching candidates and extracting them to come and join you. So how do we pitch it? And then we will create a job description. We'll promote that. We'll create an online video as well, which we use virally to attract candidates. And then something really, really important which makes a big difference. If we're hiring in a country like the Netherlands, for example, we'll say, look, today is whatever, January the 1st. We'll give you a shortlist by the end of this month. But can we put a date in the diary, for example, the week of February the 6th, where you'll go there and meet maybe up to 10 candidates, our shortlist. So when we've actually got that date in the diary, get the commitment from the client, we have a target date, which works really, really well for the candidates and the client. And it gives us a real strong focus to make sure it happens. And the big bonus, getting in front of these people face to face, because often we'll go with the client as well, makes a massive difference rather than doing everything remotely and through a video call like Zoom or Teams.
In this scenario that you're going to be also flying out to the Netherlands to actually sit down with the team, is that right?
Yes, it can happen. It doesn't always happen. It depends on what the client wants to do. If the client has a very limited management team to support him or her, they'll want us to help support them. But if they have like 3 or 4 people around them on the exec team, they'll often go as a group. But it's a joint effort making a hire. And so sometimes they want to help us with a shortlisting. Sometimes they won't. Depends on the experience and the support network that person has.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard recruiters talk, that much about traveling to other cities, but I guess that really does sort of help you demonstrate the value by actually being there in person.
Absolutely. Getting another opinion as well. But then particularly for the company who's hiring, if the more face-to-face time they have with their top candidates, the more chance they have if they get on well and bond of hiring that person. Otherwise, if they haven't met them, then they might lose out and come second because the candidate is also interviewing the hiring company. Don't forget, particularly the A players, they're picking and choosing which opportunity they want. And if they've met the hiring manager in person, being out for lunch, whatever, they're more likely to go and work with them if they get on really well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned something that I knew you did, but it's not something I've seen a lot of recruiters do. And I'm curious how it actually works. So you talk about that you create videos pitching the role. How do you get eyes on those videos? Because I know that, creating a video itself is not that challenging, but getting people to watch it can be. So what's your strategy there?
Yeah, I think firstly, candidates, the top candidates who are being headhunted, they're being inundated in some cases with lots and lots of boring, vanilla sounding messages on LinkedIn or just emails saying, here's another sales role, here's another sales manager role with a really boring generic job spec. So we decided, let's do something different. Let's create a 2-minute pitch video, which talks about not mentioning who the companies we're hiring for, just something really high level. And why would you want to join? What we're looking for, and the whole candidate experience is really, really high in terms of feedback. And then we will send that video out to the targeted candidates we're looking to hire. So for example, if we're looking for a sales director in Germany, we'll identify firstly maybe 300 target candidates or people we would like to engage with, and we'll contact them and send them a link to that video. And they'll watch the video, they'll forward it to people they might know if they're not looking, it becomes a bit viral, and then we get a really, really strong response, much better than we would with a cold InMail, for example. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think that's something I would advocate other recruiters try, because people are so inundated, especially those high value candidates with, sometimes a lot of low effort outreach. And I think the video itself definitely helps differentiate you from, the other recruiters out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty is that the candidates can book a call as well, just like on a Calendly, for example. They can watch the video and then book you straight into the diary. So you come to work on a Monday morning, your calendar's book of interviews for you to start the week.
Right. So you have like the video embedded in a page with like a booking calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's good. That's a good idea, because I think whenever you're trying to get anybody to do anything, you want to reduce the friction as much as possible. So putting those two elements together, I think, is a great way to do that.
But also that it gives the candidate, particularly if a candidate doesn't know who we are, when it's just an InMail, it's a cold message. When they can see us, visualize us, hear it's real, something tangible, I think they're more likely to engage in a video call than just messaging backwards and forwards. So I think it does break down the barriers. And as we say, it's like a knife cutting through the butter, just through noise.
Have you ever recorded personal videos for a client, like something that's just for them? Or is that too much work?
In terms of what, prospecting new clients or you mean existing clients?
Either, actually. I was talking about candidates, but prospecting, I think, would be an interesting angle too.
Yeah, we've tried some of that, yes. I think voice notes are very strong as well. You don't have to have a video. A voice note is really, really good. Less intrusive than a video, perhaps, if it's going in cold, purely cold, if you're trying to cold call somebody. But yeah, so I think you got to observe the crowd and do the opposite. So if everyone is sending out hundreds of emails or InMails, it becomes really mainstream. And you got to try and work out a different novel channel, which no one else is really doing. So it has that novelty effect. Otherwise, you just want one of hundreds of emails hitting an inbox. Because email used to work much better. Text messaging used to work really well. But then when it becomes adopted and mainstream, its impact has less and less results. So I think that's you've always got to look at new ways to cut through the noise.
Right. I mean, it's tough to stay innovative too, because everybody will adopt things that work eventually, right? So yeah, I can see that's definitely a challenge, but I like the way you're solving it. Just one more question for you, and it goes back a little bit to this, a little more concretely to the story that you told. And so that question is, what type of objections, when you're sort of expanding with an early stage company who maybe doesn't have like a track record or something they can point to as to why they're a good place to work, when you're in that situation, what type of objections do you kind of get from senior people when you're pitching that story to them, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think it depends. The objections are different and are more difficult to overcome depending on the country you're selling into. So, for example, if you look at Germany, where senior people, particularly their employed, are very, very cautious and a bit wary of startups, you have to overcome them. It's tougher, it's tougher. They don't just want to be a sales rep sitting at home, banging the phone all day as employee number one. They want a group of people. Sometimes they want to have an entity set up. They want to have their data stored in Frankfurt or wherever it is. So you can't cut any corners. You've got to do it properly and throw a ton of money at it. But if you look at France, perhaps they're more open to being a sales rep working from home remotely. So I think it depends on the country. But in how do you overcome some of these objections? If you're hiring a great sales rep, sometimes you have to pay them 3 or 6 month guaranteed commission to help them ramp up. Sometimes you have to give them an SDR support or some A's to give them that extra pipeline, or the benefits or the stock options. But ultimately, you're trying to give them some type of reduce their risk of making a mistake. You've got to boost their chances of making a success out of it by not cutting any corners and trying to convince them that's what you're doing. But often when I look at some of the American or European startups who've gone to Germany for the first time, often the ones who are successful have case studies there already with German headquartered firms, good references. They got pipeline, and again, they do it properly. They hire an absolute A player. They pay top bucks for the best people, but they create that team underneath them to support them. That's what they so going properly.
So would you say Germany is the toughest place to hire then for a startup?
Yeah, particularly salespeople. Definitely, it's very, very tough. Because the Germans will X-ray your solution before they'll X-ray the salesperson and the solution. They'll look for any problem and they'll find a problem in it, your service or product, before they decide where it's being hosted or if the competition's too fierce locally. That they will find it. So it's tough.
Interesting to hear that they do live up to their reputation in some ways. That's all the questions I have for now. Ben, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all the insight that you've shared with us today.
You're very welcome, Zach. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to Recruiter Wins. Please join us again when we ask our next recruiter one simple question. Tell me about your biggest recruiting win.